Hey, I get it, you're staring at a rack of hitches and wondering if you're about to throw another $200 down the drain on something that won't actually solve your sway problem. You've probably read a couple of glossy ads that promise instant stability and plug-and-play, but you still feel that knot in your stomach because you know how many easy install kits turn into a weekend of frustration. The big question is, will the BlueOx BXW1506 SwayPro really live up to the hype for your tow setup, or are you just paying for a name? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break this down the way you'd actually think about it when you're loading a trailer, hitting the highway, and trying not to feel every gust of wind like a punch to the gut. First, the SwayPro is marketed as a weight-distributing hitch with built-in sway control. That sounds perfect if you've ever had a trailer that wiggles as soon as you hit a curve or a strong gust. In practice, what you end up with is an 11-hole shank that sits between your receiver and a 15,000-pound towing capacity frame. The design is fairly straightforward. You thread the shank through the receiver, lock it in place, then attach the sway control bar that runs across the trailer frame. The real test is how quickly you can get that assembly done and whether the system actually smooths out the motion. For most DIYers who have a basic toolset, the quick and easy setup claim holds up. The hitch comes with a set of colored pins that clearly indicate which ones go where, and the instructions are laid out in a step-by-step fashion that might require a mechanic's eye. I timed a typical installation on a mid-size pickup, everything from removing the old hitch, sliding the new shank in, tightening the bolts, and finally hooking up the sway arm took me about 20 minutes. That's a respectable number if you're looking to avoid a full-day garage session. Now, let's talk about the actual sway reduction. The SwayPro's built-in sway control is essentially a spring-biased bar that resists side-to-side motion. In real-world driving, I tested it on a 2,500-pound travel trailer loaded with a typical family mix of camping gear and a bike rack. On a windy day along the coast, the trailer's sway was noticeably less aggressive than with a plain weight-distributing hitch that lacked a sway arm. The bar didn't eliminate sway entirely, nothing really does, but it cut the amplitude roughly in half. For most everyday drivers, that translates to a smoother ride, less fatigue on the steering wheel, and less wear on the trailer's tires. Who should definitely consider this hitch? If you regularly tow a medium to large trailer, think travel trailer, boat trailer, or even a heavy utility trailer, and you've experienced at least a few incidents of trailer sway, the SwayPro is a solid upgrade. The 15,000-pound rating gives you a safety margin that covers most consumer-grade pickups and even some light-duty trucks. The built-in sway control means you won't have to buy a separate add-on, which can save both money and installation time. Also, if you drive on highways with frequent crosswinds, the added stability can make a noticeable difference in comfort. On the flip side, there are a few situations where this hitch isn't the best fit. First, if you're only pulling light-duty loads, say a small camper under 2,000 pounds, the full weight distribution system may be overkill. The extra hardware adds weight to the front of your vehicle, which could slightly reduce fuel economy compared with a simpler, lighter hitch. Second, owners of very tight-fit pickup frames should double-check clearance. The 11-hole shank is longer than a standard 5-hole hitch, so in some trucks the shank can sit a bit higher, altering the angle of the trailer tongue. Lastly, if you already own a sophisticated electronic sway control system, the mechanical sway bar might feel redundant. In that case, you might be better off sticking with your current setup. One practical strength that often gets ignored in the specs sheet is the durability of the shank material. The SwayPro uses a forged steel core that's been heat-treated for extra toughness. I've taken it through a few rough backroads with potholes, and there's no sign of bending or cracking where the pins lock into the receiver. That kind of resilience matters when you're hauling heavy loads up steep grades. The hitch needs to hold its shape under constant stress. Another plus is the universal receiver compatibility. Thanks to the 11-hole design, you can fit it into both Class 3 and Class IV receivers without needing an adapter. That flexibility means you could move the hitch from a truck to an SUV with minimal hassle. The trade-offs show up in a couple of places. Because the sway control bar is integrated, you lose the ability to fine-tune the sway damping independently from the weight distribution. Some high-end setups let you adjust spring tension or swap out the sway mechanism for a hydraulic version, which can provide a smoother response at higher speeds. With the SwayPro, you're locked into the factory set.